But I think out here, what I wanted to talk about was with LLMs, LLM, ChatGPT. When you take all of these things, it's used interchanged. But I wanted to talk about what's out there, what's your options, what you can do with that, and especially focusing on publicly available options versus privately what you could build. So this slide just talks about base LLM. It's like anybody who's used ChatGPT knows you ask a question, it can answer. Okay, I think we move on to the next slide for the audience here, Lee. So I look at this landscape as basically there's three options out there. ChatGPT is the market leader. Everyone knows that, right? So there's ChatGPT. There's competitors like Bard, Gemini, Cohere, all of them, which are black box, similar to ChatGPT, or at least trying to get there, competing with them. And lately there's been a huge buzz and actually a huge community around the open source AIs and what you can do with them, because they provide a different set of options and expand the possibilities of what you can solve with these things. Next slide. Okay, so with this, I wanted to set a base for so those were the public and the open source we talked about. So with the public, there is another side of it. You could build a private Gen AI, private LLM, right? So what is that? It's a model hosted with complete control by the org. It's either in your own data center or in a VPC. So you control all of it. They have full control over content, usage, privacy, all these sort of things. Not only can you do that, you can enhance them to application specific or your domain specific things, and specifically around safeguards, mitigations, what sort of transparency you want to provide. And you can feed them with proprietary internal data, which you probably don't want to do with the public ones. So that's the private LLM, private Gen AI. Next slide. Okay, why private Gen AI? So if I think many of you probably know, I just copied some headlines from the news over the last several months. A very classic example was this Samsung's GAFE on where employees, I don't know if it's accidentally or unaware of that they're leaking, they actually put in chip design. Samsung makes 2 nanometer, some of the most advanced chips, and they were leaking some of the chip design, very proprietary internal data that they actually do. Not only they design for themselves, they design for other customers like Apple and Qualcomm and a whole bunch of companies, right? So this was leaked out and came out, and things like this can happen. And there was another episode where ChatGPT was leaking private data. There's many use examples, but I like to use the Samsung one the best. Recently, there was another one. ChatGPT leaked payment info. Okay, stuff like that. There's several examples. I won't get into much, but when you use the public stuff, you have to understand that's a possibility. Okay, next slide. So why would you want to do that? I think knowing those problems, obviously, you want to avoid those. You have the means to sort of avoid those sensitive information being leaked out. You get better data protection, IP protection. And some cases, you have to do it for regulatory compliance. In the finance industry where we work, you just can't put some of those information out in any of those public APIs or public models. So you have to build it where it's totally locked down within your own firewall, and you have full audit trail of every single event that happened and what the consequences were. And okay, so Llama and Mistral both are currently under those licenses. So in that case, you're free to use it. And Llama actually restricts, they have a restriction, which probably won't apply for you or most people here. They restrict anyone having more than 700 million users. So if you have more than 700 million users, you need to talk to them to get a license.
I think the point, Sashi, is that litigation is still ongoing. There's a number of active lawsuits, and as you said, Amy is probably the Amy or Sherry are probably the subject matter experts on this call, who can talk to anything that's pending. Right now, my advice to any entertainment or creative person is that you're free to use ChatGPT or any of the large language models to create new content. However, publishing, selling, and distributing that content, you need to have copyright infringement review. Now, there are a number of tools that are starting to emerge, like watermarking, that will watermark images that are created with AI, as well as AI detection software to determine whether or not an AI response has been there. And there's also the classic plagiarism checks as well. So, if as long as you have an AI policy that's developed for your company, and certainly Amy can talk to that as well, that it's buyer beware, so to speak. It's like if you're going to put stuff out, you need to make sure that it's protected, and that if you are infringing, that you've at least bought the license or have negotiated or flagged it.
Got it. No, thank you so much.
Sherry, do you have a comment on that?
Honestly, I think, Ken covered it. It's you should assume, honestly, that if it was generated by AI, there is no ability to protect it right now. That doesn't mean there won't be over time, but the cautionary step that can be taken, I think, from a technology perspective, is to be as transparent as humanly possible. That will serve you on both ends of it, though, because if you're transparent and you're trying to make sure that you do have the right kind of focus on the content you're using that could be copyrighted, then you are, paying attention to what the attributions or any kind of condition under which you need to use that particular, work already published out there. If you're publishing your own, though, you really should assume for now, until there is a lot more underneath us in terms of litigation that's currently underway and everything else that needs to essentially, align from a legislative perspective. It's not possible today to take AI generated content and protect it in the way that you typically protect something that a human generates. So I think Amy, if she were here, and she's not able to be with us today, unfortunately, but I think she would go even further to say, just make the assumption that it's not protectable. So it's causing a pause. I think the pause will abate eventually, but right now you really should be careful that even if you've got humans in the middle, you're not necessarily able to protect your work product if you've generated it through AI, even on a closed model.